Good morning. Today we are going to be discussing inverse variation, which in the Big Ideas Algebra 2 book, this is Chapter 8, Section 1. In the state of Texas, it's TEKS 2A.6L. We will be able to distinguish between inverse and direct variation. So today we're going to see what the differences are between them and learn how to distinguish a table if the table is actually direct or inverse. So inverse variation. Two variables, x and y, show inverse variation when they are related as y equals k over x. So basically, as y increases, x is decreasing because it's division. The constant k is called the constant of variation, and y is said to be the inverse of x. So it's just terminology there. Now that k can be a, I've seen some books say a, it doesn't matter. Just it's your constant of variation. Now direct variation, which you should have been taught in Algebra 1, is two variables, x and y, show direct variation when they are related as y equals kx. K again is called the constant of variation, and y is said to be a direct variation of x. So for multiplying, as y increases, x increases. Okay? So we're going to start off by just looking at them, distinguishing what kind it is. So if we solve for y and we get a number over x, okay, that's going to be inverse. If we solve for y and get a number times x, it's going to be direct. And if we have a plus or minus sign in there, it's actually going to be neither. So for this first problem here, we have xy equals to 3. So we're going to solve for y first by dividing by x. So we get y equals 3 over x. Okay. Our k value is going to be that number on the top, so k equals 3. And what kind is it? Well, when we divide and there's a number on top, this is an inverse. If I were to plug in numbers as y increases, x decreases. Okay? This one, it's already solved for y. We're not multiplying, we're not dividing. So in this case, there is no k because it's neither. For the next one, we want to solve for y. So we move this 7 over by multiplying both sides by 7. We get y equals 7x. So my k value is 7. And because I'm multiplying, this is an example of direct. Okay. So the important stuff today is actually to be able to find a table and decide which relationship the table shows. So here's our table. This is what we're given. So we were already told that y equals kx for direct, but on these tables, they've already given us x and y. So we're trying to see if it has a constant of variation when we multiply or a constant of variation when we divide. So we already set up a table, okay? Now, we kind of have it flipped from what you see here. Here's direct, okay? Y equals kx. Well, we need to solve for k, so we want to move the x to the other side, so we divide by x. So if k equals y over x, if that constant is the same or we find the same k value, then we can call it direct, okay? So if this one number is the same, we call it direct. Now, on the inverse variation, we know y equals k over x, but again, I want the k. So how do I get rid of a divide by x? I multiply by x. So if I multiply and get k equals xy, this would be an example of inverse. So we're going to take the numbers from the table, and I don't know we show all the work there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pair them up and take these two first, then I'm going to take these two, then I'm going to take these two, and then I'm going to take the last two, okay? So for the first two, I'm going to multiply x and y. That's negative 2 times negative 18. I get 36. I do the second ones. 3 times 12, I get 36. Third one, 1 times 36, and the last one, okay? If I get all the same numbers on my first go around, I actually don't have to keep on going because the k values were all the same, the constant were all the same. I have proven that this is an example of inverse variation, okay? So the type of variation is, this is an example of inverse. It didn't ask me for the equation, but if it did, I would actually come back and write the equation solved for y. So it would be y equals 36 over x. Okay. So we're going to do another table. And here's already, I just moved it over for us. So we're going to start off again. So if we're solving for k and we multiply, this would be inverse. And this would be direct. So we're going to start off by multiplying our terms again. So I'm going to start with those two. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. Well, I got a different number there. They're not the same, so it definitely cannot be inverse. Okay, I'd have to have the same exact number repeated. So now we try dividing, and it's y divided by x. So this is 2 divided by 1, 2. 4 divided by 2, 2. 6 divided by 3, 2. And the last one would be 8 divided by 4, that would be 2. Since all those numbers are the same, we have proven that this is direct, okay? So type of variation, this is direct variation. If I had to write the equation, I go back to the y equals 2x. Now, if you work it out in this table and you don't get numbers consistent on the top or numbers consistent on the bottom, then that would be neither, okay? So now we're just going to have a couple questions that deal with the words, okay? So same thing. This says the variables of x and y vary inversely. So key thing to know, whenever you see that word inversely, I want you to start off with y equals k over x, because that's what your equation should look like for inverse variation. It says y equals -5 and x equals 6. Write an equation that's going to relate x and y. So I'm going to go and plug this number into here. I'm going to plug this number into here. And I'm going to solve for k. So -5 equals k over 6. Well, I need to get k by itself. So what's the opposite of dividing by 6? We are going to multiply both sides by 6. My constant of variation is -30. Write an equation that relates them. Well, again, we go back to the inverse variation. Y equals -30 over x. Here is my equation. That is part 1 of this question. The second part of the question says, find y when x equals -3. So we take the equation that we just wrote. Find y when x equals when x equals 3. So -30 divided by 3, y equals -10. So 2 parts to this question. Let's try it again. The variables of x and y vary directly. If it says very directly, we're going to start with y equals kx. And it says that y equals -6 and x equals 2. We're going to write an equation that relates these two to each other. So we have -6 equals k times 2. This time, again, we're multiplying because it said directly. Now I want to move that 2 to the other side and to do the inverse operation. Opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So I'm going to get k equals -3. So when I go back to the original equation to write it, y equals -3x. There is part 1 to this question. Part 2 says, then find y when x equals to 4. So find y when x equals to 4. -3 times 4 is y equals -12. Okay, we're going to stop this video right here. Again, this went over tables and word problems of distinguishing between inverse or direct variation, and then we also learn to write the equations and to solve for other variables. Please subscribe to this channel. We'll be posting more videos for this lesson, and I hope you guys have a great day.